is exactly 6:30, so we are going to begin our community forum. Welcome to everyone here in the audience and those watching from home. We are excited to share with you about where we are in the MSBA process connected to the Elmwood building project. Our hope tonight is to communicate with you where we are and gain some insights and questions for you as we work toward building the best possible school for the community of Hopkinton. So before we begin, we just wanted to go over the format of the meeting. This meeting is being held in person and also through HCAM. We will have our building committee website anchored for you so you can enter questions or comments throughout the meeting if you are watching from home. Our email address is esbc2@hopkintonma.gov. We'll be able to read your questions live, so please enter them as we go. And we will introduce ourselves before we get any further into the content. So good evening, I'm Tiffany Ostrander. I'm the Vice Chair of the Elmwood School Building Committee.
Good evening, folks. I'm Mike Shepard. I'm on the building committee as well.
Hi, everyone. I'm Carol Cavanaugh, the Superintendent of Schools.
Susan Rothermick, the Director of Finance and Operations.
Tim Person, Director of Facilities.
I'm Jeffrey D'Amico, the Owner's Project Manager from Vertex.
Lisa Pecora from Perkins Eastman.
And I'm Robert Bell, also from Perkins Eastman Architects.
So our group is excited to hold this forum for you, and we're also interested in who's attending the forum right now. So we are going to try our first Menti experience currently. So if you're watching at home, you can type in the menti.com and enter the code, or you can go ahead and scan by using your phone. And for those in person, you may do the same. The question we're going to be asking you is what describes you best as a community member? Great. Parent of a future student, a resident. Give you another couple seconds to log in. Town employee. Elected official, parent of a current student. So this Menti will be open. This survey will continue to be open up until November 11th. So if you are watching this at a delayed time and the date for you is not November 2nd, please do feel free to continue to engage with this Menti question. And we'll hop into the agenda. So this evening, you'll hear a brief overview with the project timeline and key decisions, a recap of what we've covered so far as an Elmwood School Building Project Committee with the town of Hopkinton and, of course, Vertex and Perkins Eastman. We'll also briefly cover the previous community forum that we had. We will discuss preliminary studies connected to the site and building program, renovation and addition studies, and new construction test fits. We will have a system-wide considerations discussion, and then at the end we will leave time for questions and next steps. So Bob will take it from here.
Great. So as far as a brief overview, we wanted to cover, I think every time we get together, we share a little bit again about the scope and the timeline and some of the key decisions, because there will always be new participants, and it's really an important part of the project. So I'll just do this pretty briefly. So the town has partnered with the MSBA, which is a funding agency. They will contribute a certain amount to the town of Hopkinton based on eligible scope on a project. They determine the process. They've worked with the community already to determine the enrollment. Some of what the process entails is to look at a repair only for the Elmwood School, and that's not to improve anything educationally or add additional space. It's just the repair. And the reason that that is developed is for cost comparison, to understand in relative terms what would it take just to fix the building. We'll also be looking at, as part of the MSBA process, renovations and additions to the Elmwood School. Will, of course, include new construction, and that new construction will be examined on the existing site as well as at alternative sites. Part of the agreement with the MSBA is also to look at a grade 2-3, the current configuration, as well as a grade 2-3-4. The project has net zero energy aspirations, so we'll be building in a sustainable mindset into everything we do and advancing those conversations as we go through the process. We understand from the community that traffic will be an important topic to cover. Will need to be a consideration and examined for the various options as they develop. And we also know that community voice is very important. The MSBA outlines a very engaged process with the community, and we know here that it's also very important that the community comes along and participates throughout the process in the decisions to make sure that we build some consensus around the solution. The last thing about the project scope, it's outside of the MSBA's normal scope of work, is a system-wide capacity study. So that is in the 2 grade configuration options to look at the impact system-wide. So that will be built in as well and brought through this process. The overall timeline as far as a project like this would be somewhere 5 years or longer overall. About half of that time, about 2.5 years, is spent just in forming the team and going through the design, the goals, the documentation, everything it takes to build, to issue drawings to a contractor. And then there's another couple of years spent in construction. If it's new construction, if it's a renovation, it could be longer. But I think what's really important as we look at these phases, you can see they're colored. These are MSBA acronyms for the first 2. The yellow and the blue are the feasibility study, and those are each submissions. The green is schematic design, and these are the phases that we're under contract to pursue right now. The important thing is that key decisions are really made within the first 6 months, and from where we are right now, it's really the next 4 months. So from now into February, when the final selection of a preferred option will be made, including the grade configuration. And after that point, that one option will be developed in more detail and further scoped, but the next 4 months are really, really key. As far as the process itself, we're engaging in a number of both faculty and community forums to try to get some feedback and input, but also to share along the way with what we're learning. We have regular ESBC meetings, and those are open to the public. The educational visioning has just begun, and that's where the goals will be established. That group is really a smaller group of about 30 or so, cross-section from the community, including parents, teachers, educational leaders, municipal leaders, committee representatives, business owners. So the idea is to get a smaller group structured around rolling up the sleeves and doing some of that visioning engagement. We hope to have a student workshop at some point during the process. And of course, we've listed out here the faculty and community forums that we have targeted with dates and roughly the content that will be shared along the way. Key milestone is around December 6th. There'll be a vote on the short list of options, and that's when we take the many options that are being explored right now and they're whittled down to maybe a handful of most viable. After that, there will be grade configuration discussions, including a number of school committee meetings where that will be part of the topic. And ultimately, the school building committee will vote on the preferred option in February 13th. So we'd also like to take a moment to recap forum, the first community forum that we had a few weeks ago. We covered existing conditions, the alternative sites and evaluation criteria for those sites, and sustainability. This is a look at the existing site plan. What was shared here is really the constraints that we see on the site. The yellow line that bisects the site, as many of you know, is the gas line that runs through the site. The play fields are on the northeast side of that. The existing building is shown here in white. In the southern portion, there are wetlands and wetland setbacks that encroach close to the building. So when you really break the site down, you can see it's constrained, and there's not as much room as it might first appear on that site. We also know, in looking at the existing building, that there are a number of things required even just for repairs. And what a lot of folks might not know is that to make repairs or to bring a building up to code usually triggers more code work, more requirements. When you hit 30% of the assessed value of the building, it requires full code upgrades. So there's substantial work on the existing building that would need to be done as well. As far as a look at sites, there were 45 sites identified overall. Those were culled down to about 5, and more recently down to 3, and we'll walk through what those sites are. The criteria that really took the 45 down to 3 sites was predominantly having enough acreage to accommodate the school projects at hand, the grade 2-3 or 2-3-4. Again, with each one of the sites looking at constraints and wetlands and other conditions, it was felt that the 3 sites that we're moving forward with are the most viable. There's a total list here of 17 criteria. I won't go through each one of these, but we're continuing to assemble this criteria as the lens for which we'll evaluate the options as they develop. We heard at the last meeting a desire to include operating efficiencies, operating costs, which is something that we'll be adding to the list. There was also some discussion of emissions and how the different options may compare. We think that's something that definitely should weigh in, or something that we'll be thinking of and looking at, not necessarily official criteria to gauge each site by, only because it does become challenging to kind of determine what the emissions could be. There are a lot of hypotheticals that would weigh into that, but it certainly will be something that we'll be thinking about with each site. The 3 sites are shown here, and working from the far left, 67 East Main Street is one of the sites. The grayed out sites here are, one of them was HAYDEN ROWE, Site 21, and what we've done is actually combined that with Site 28, which is also some HAYDEN ROWE parcels. So we're going to be looking at that site as one site, really. So there are a number of parcels there that may work with different solutions. And then ultimately Elm Street, the current school site, will be continue to be explored. Some of the engagement at the last forum, things that we heard about the criteria were that basically some of the top interests in the criteria were the educational program. Basically, what you see on the far left in blue is 23% for educational program accommodation, to make sure that the option does meet the educational needs. We also see that number 12 here, future growth and flexibility was an important criteria. And we also heard that sustainability would be as well. For sustainability topics or priorities, the number 1 criteria here, or topic, which is shown right here, was design for energy. So that does speak toward the net zero goals that the project has. But also measuring up pretty closely was the design for well-being. So creating facilities, or focusing on facilities that are healthy and for wellness. We also saw that discovery and integration were important aspects too. So in a diverse community, certainly celebrating or integrating The diversity is a great thing. I think for this age level, we know that discovery is an important part of good school design as well. So we'd like to go back to the Mentimeter poll and move on to another question, which is how would you prioritize the criteria below? So it looks like some may have jumped ahead and started to fill this out, but we've taken the 17 criteria and put them, just distilled them into maybe 8 primary categories. And it looks like, at least so far, kind of in parallel with what we heard last time, educational effectiveness and flexibility is really important. I can see that relief for overcrowding is also very high. And there's some spotlighting here of least cost over time, which is really a sustainable mindset on operating costs. And so with this, just as with the other Mentimeter slides, we're going to leave these open so that if you're watching at home or if somebody participates and watches this community forum later, you'll be able to jump on to the Menti website, punch in the code, and fill out these at a later date. I think we'll keep the Menti polls will be up until they'll expire on November 11th. Is that right? Yeah. Great. So I'll spend a little time now just going into the preliminary program. So this is, of course, looking at the grade 2-3 and 2-3-4 school. What we've done here, we're listing from left to right the existing school's gross square footage, total square footage, and then what grade 2-3 or 2-3-4 would be in broad terms. And we built the size of the school using the MSBA's template. So knowing what the enrollment is, we can plug that into their template and get an approximate size of what the school would need to be. This isn't the final program. This is what we do at this very early level so that we can start to then create test fit plans and explore each one of the sites. We also looked at the site program. We looked at what exists now for parking and car and bus queue, as well as play space. And we looked to the zoning requirements for schools of these size to find out what should be the parking targets, what would prorate up for car queue and bus queue, and also speaking with the faculty and staff about recess and physical education and what kind of spaces would be needed. So all of this just comes together to give us a total program that we can use to explore each one of the sites. For the options themselves, we'll start with the renovation. We have a couple renovation options to show. When I say options, they're not really designs. Again, they're really just test fits, so it's a first pass at the feasibility to renovate. What we're looking at here is an overall floor plan of the Elmwood School. The outline in light gray is the existing building, and dotted lines are demolition or removal. The dark black outlines are new construction. So this plan, we show the first floor plan large and then a smaller version of the second floor plan. What we've done here is kept the majority of the existing building. The way this plan would develop is the new construction, the new classroom wing, which is located in the back of the building here, would be built first. 2 stories, 16 classrooms. It creates some capacity to then renovate or take down some of the existing school. The modulars that we're showing removed here would be, or at least some of them would be repurposed, possibly to other schools, not actually demolished. The new construction would continue with a brand new gymnasium. What we found in the program is based on how PE classes are scheduled, you actually need more space than your current gymnasium at the school. So the idea would be to build a new gymnasium and then maybe repurpose the existing gymnasium for cafeteria. The new construction would include a kitchen and boiler room that would be part of the early phases, so a lot of new construction could be built with, and then be used in the following phase so that other parts of the building could come down. Here we show the current cafeteria and library actually renovated to become just the library media center space. Another version of this option is, this one is very similar. It follows the same construction logic as far as building new and then taking down portions of the existing building, although it goes further for the demolition. We can see this portion of the building here, which is the current cafeteria, library media center, and 7 classrooms would be taken down, and in its place a 2-story classroom wing would be built. In both of these options, you can see there's an angle to the classroom wings, and that's deliberate to get optimal north-south orientation. That's both for energy efficiency, but also to create quality educational environments within the control of daylight. In the middle, rooms here would be repurposed, so you're seeing mostly art, music, technology spaces, as well as administration. So there's a shared zone in the middle. The idea is that the classroom wings are smaller neighborhoods of classrooms. We've also increased the corridor widths here, which would become not necessarily wide corridors, but flexible learning space. So it could be pull-out or other spaces as part of the classroom wing. So this is just a diagram to reserve that square footage so that we can create these smaller learning units and more dynamic space that uses more of the school for teaching and learning.
Also want to note that Bob, that the study here was for the 2-3 configuration with the ad reno, that the ad reno did not accommodate the 3-grade configuration building on the smaller original building of Elmwood. So both of these studies here focus on the 2-3 enrollment.
Yeah, we started to look at if a grade was added, if it were a grade 2, 3, 4 school, and the building was getting, the additions would be vertical, upward of 4 stories, which did not seem appropriate. So we really didn't have the room to fit the additional grade level.
Right. Plus the specialty spaces would be that much larger, the gymnasium and the cafeteria, why the ad reno doesn't work for the larger school.
So then we'll start to go into the test fits. This is a site plan. Do you want to walk us through?
So I'll walk you through the site plan. So as Jeff and Bob mentioned, the 2-3 school is really still jammed up into the northwest side of the site. The existing site actually only has 2.3 acres of usable space, but we were able to meet our targets that you see listed on the side of the slide. We can accommodate the necessary amount of parking spaces for 2-3 school. We'll be able to queue 12 buses and 38 cars, and you can see the car path is shown in the blue, and the orange is the bus pathway, so that'll be consistent as we look through all these test fits moving forward. Also, we can accommodate the required amount of outside play area, mostly to the west side of the site, but we still have the open field that will remain in the front of the site. So we are limited with this addition expansion, and just based on the position of the building and the room that we have to build in.
So the next series of test fit studies are into new options. So beginning with the Elmwood site, and then over to East Main, and then Hayden Row. We developed a simple diagram. Again, this is not a design. This is a test fit diagram. What it shows are really just, again, those classroom neighborhoods. In this case, we're showing 3 wings. It could be 2, it could be 4. And we're showing it as a 2-story school for the grade 2-3 configuration. If it were a grade 2-3-4 configuration, we would imagine this would be 3 stories, 3 floor levels for the academics, and some of these major spaces would also get a little bit larger. It locates the shared and community use spaces, like the gym, the cafeteria, the media center, all kind of on a main spine. The idea with creating a shape to this is just to test it on each site, and if the site has particular dimensions or constraints, we want to know if it starts to impact a floor plan. So that's why we developed it to this level.
Okay. So Test Fit 1 is a new 2-3, two-story school on the Elmwood site. It keeps the existing school open while the new school is being built. Then the old school would be demolished and replaced with new parking and outside play area. The school is proposed on the north side of the gas line in what's now a wooded area on the site. The new building in this option is very tight to the existing school and will likely be very disruptive during school time, could disrupt the education and the circulation flow throughout the site. But those are challenges that projects like this just have to work through, moving through with the construction process. It also leaves limited space for future expansion. Okay. So this is Test Fit 1, which adds a third floor classroom and increases the size of the library, cafeteria, and gym for a new 2-3-4 school. It's also keeping the existing school open while the new school is being built. But because of the increase in parking needed for a 2-3-4 school, smaller play areas need to be kind of spread out throughout the site because we don't have that larger space that we had in the previous option for a larger play area. We also have limited space left in this option for future expansion, and we'll have some of the similar space constraints as the 2-3 school option did during construction. All right, this is Test Fit 2, which locates a new 2-3 two-story school on the Elmwood site south of the gas line, and it would require the purchase of 2 properties on Elm Street. It moves construction a little further away from the existing school, but it minimizes the need to regrade that northwest side of the site. Where the existing school is now. So this option adds a connection to Wood Street and leaves the center of the site open. This version shows the 2-wing model. That previous one showed a 3-wing model, which helps a little bit to keep some of the open space on the site and leave a little bit more distance between the building and the gas line. Okay. Right, this is Test Fit 2 with the third floor classrooms and the increased library, cafeteria, and gym for the 2-3-4 school. So it requires a larger footprint. The building is squeezed between Elm Street and the gas line with no room for expansion. And the core of the site will need to house the parking area because we're kind of locked in on where we can put it. So unfortunately, having the parking in this location separates the play fields from the school, which might make it a little challenging for students when they go out to recess. Okay. This is Test Fit 3, which is a 3-story 2-3-4 school. It rotates the entry towards the intersection of Elm Street and Wood Street. The layout has 3 smaller wings in lieu of the 2 longer wings that we saw in Test Fit 2. And in this version, the building actually touches the corridor of the gas line on that north wing. So it's gonna prevent us from doing any expansions in the future to that part of the wing, the school. And like Test Fit 2, the parking lot also divides the site. So we'll look at something different here. This is the East Main Street site. This Test Fit is a 2-story 2-3 school that's adjacent to the solar fields, where we will have to look into what the setbacks will be required. So that might limit some of our expansion in this space and how close we can get to that line. It does have room for a small field area on the south of the site. The option also proposes a second access for the buses onto Phillip Street. And another thing to note is that the site is on the east side of Hopkinton and away from the other schools. And this is the East Main Street site with the 3-story option for the 2-3-4 school. So same as what we've seen before. It has the bigger footprint, but we are able to fit everything on the site. We've expanded the parking area to the south and a little bit to the east, and we expanded the play area to the west side of the site. Okay, this next option builds in the property directly adjacent to the Marathon School on Hayden Row. This site allows for better vehicular circulation and simplifies the bus drop-off and pickup between Marathon and the new school, assuming that they can share buses now. This is a two-story option of the a two-story option for the 2-3 grade levels. And then we also did a test fit that shows the 3-story option with the expanded footprint, in which we still have plenty of space to expand, whether for play area and also for future expansion of the school. All right, and the last test fit looks at combining all of the sites on Hayden Row, allowing for ample play and green space around the school, and will allow for the sharing of open space between the Marathon School and the new school. This is the 2-3 option, so a 2-story school option, and then we also enlarged the test fit to show the 2-3-4 option with the expanded footprint and the increased parking areas, in which you still see we still have a lot of space for future expansion and lots of open space around both schools.
So one of the things that we thought we would do, and this is something that, again, will stay open till November 11th, but looking at the 3 sites, we wanted to ask the question, what are the top few advantages or concerns, starting with the Elmwood site? And so this is an open word bubble, so we'd invite folks to add some of their thoughts. We also, what we would like to do is collect this over time. So if not tonight, perhaps another night, spending time looking at the options and providing some comments. So this is true also, actually, let me go live. Looks like we've got some comments. This is on the Elmwood site. And we'll be able to take these, record these, compare them, but certainly too tight, no room for expansion, no option for the grade 2, 3, 4. School open during construction is very concerning. Again, more comments on the lack of expandability. So great. Separate from other schools. Gas lines in all caps. You hear that? So moving on to, and again, we'll come back to this, and please continue to add comments. Moving on to the East Main Street site. We've got one comment so far, somewhat remote, lack of sewerage, beautiful site.
Bob, one other thing to point out, I don't believe we own the property on East Main Street, so we would need to purchase that property, and I'm not sure if we were clear about that on the slide.
Thank you.
Yep, no, I did not make note of that.
And then also moving on to Hayden Row, and we know there's a lot of options, a lot of parcels there to look at. Comment we've got here is positive, all schools together, negative, all schools together. Traffic, and noting that it's town-owned. Traffic, of course. Some notes, perfect. So that's great. We can come back to these. We will share when we get together for the next forum as well. We'll recap, what we've accumulated here. Oops. So the last thing we did want to share before we get to question and answer is just start the conversation on grade level considerations. We know that with the MSBA opportunities here to look at a grade 2-3 as well as a grade 2-3-4, we'll want to map what that could mean system-wide. Certainly here we're showing, it could be that the top line shows the current configurations of Elmwood, Hopkins, and the middle school. We could also see that if grade 4 goes to Elmwood, that possibly grade 6 would go to Hopkins. And what that looks like is really just mapping out the schools together here. We've listed all the grade levels. We've looked at the existing enrollment per grade, and that's based on this school year. And then tallied together, what each school is looking like currently. And then forecasting ahead, even with the same exact grade configurations system-wide, the projected enrollment you can see is significantly up at each school. And the current project with the MSBA is the Elmwood school only. Looking at the grade 2-3-4, we can see that if it is the MSBA project, it does bring another grade into the part of the immediate project and design solution, and we can see we would still have other increased enrollment at the other schools. But on this, we're just happy to get thoughts and ideas on the configurations, and I think from there turn it over to question and answer.
Great. So at this point, we'll turn it over to question and answer. If you're here in person and would like to ask a question, we ask that you just come to the microphone and, very much like town meeting, state your name and your address. We have our community expert, Mike Shepard, up here, who will help answer the questions, as well as the administration team from Hopkinton Public Schools, and of course, our design team.
That was just a really polite way of saying the old guy.
Hello, Amanda Fargiano, 17 Tamar Lane. I just wanted to know if you could talk a little about the East Main parcel. I'm not familiar with exactly where that is, and if you could sort of describe it so that the community and myself can figure out where exactly we're talking about.
Do you want to talk about it, Mike?
Yeah. The East Main Street property is owned by Marilyn Mezet. If you go up to the what used to be Franklin Road, which is now Legacy North Road, it's the property to the left of that. Ms. Mezet owns the entire parcel. It's 50 some odd acres. The parcel on which her drop dead gorgeous house is on is 3.5 acres. And she and her husband arranged to have half the property, the 50 acres, is in a solar field, which is situated pretty nicely because you don't really see it from the street. The site, as all you know, has a lot of history. In fact, the way Bob showed the entrance to the school is just about where Lucky Rock is, which is where the marathon started. It's kind of steeply sloped. It looks gorgeous. Looks like a nursery. The disadvantages are that it doesn't have any sewerage, and pretty much all the buses that leave there have to go through the center of town to get anyplace else, which could be a downside. That's pretty much it. It's a beautiful piece of property.
All right, I'm checking out the email, the ESBC2 at hopkintonma.gov, and I am not seeing any additional questions. Is there anyone else in the room?
David Simpson, 16 Ledgestone. Talking about the numbers of students predicted for the grade levels. So you had, if it was a 2, 3, 4, it was like 1195. What year would we hit that in? Where's that prediction versus, you know, I know the existing site, you kept saying we would have very limited room for expansion. So at what point would we be expected to kind of hit those numbers? Because I know for the MSBA, we can only overbuild a very limited amount.
So I can begin and say that the data here was from, as far as the projected enrollments were to 2032. And I believe they were a blended average of enrollment projections over the years leading to 2032.
By blended average, he means the MSBA's numbers and the numbers put together by the town. They came up with those numbers, which projects it out 10 years from now.
Thank you.
Check the inbox one more time. There are no further questions in the email. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to ask a question?
So as we noted, the Mentimeter will stay up and available through November 11th. So pass it along to your friends and those that are watching at home on the taped relay of this. That'll be open to collect additional information. And we'll be recapping this forum at the next one, which is scheduled for November 30th. And so the data we collect on that survey, as well as other venues and using the project's email, we'll bring back and discuss with the community at that next forum coming up on November 30th.
I'd also encourage, we have up at the front of the stage some handout flyers that include that same Mentimeter information to be able to log on. So if anyone wants to take one with them or take a few to hand out to neighbors or friends, that'd be great to get more input.
We'll continue to populate the website, which is the Elmwood Project, one word. So tonight's presentation will be up there before the weekend with all the slides, so you can look at them at your leisure and understand where we are in the process.
Great. So we will conclude our community forum. We appreciate your time. Our immediate next steps are to host the visioning team this Saturday at the Hopkinton Middle School, featuring parents, community members, the Hopkinton admin team, and we're very excited about that. And we encourage you to watch the monthly Elmwood School Building Committee meetings that are now going to be on HCAM. Our next one is November 22nd from 6 to 8, and then join us again for Community Forum number 3 right here on November 30th. Thanks, everybody. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
We also have a meeting next week
We have a meeting next week, too, which I'll be at.
on the 8th.
We have a lot of meetings.
We have long meetings.
We're meeting twice monthly with the building committee.
If I may, obviously the people in the audience are really interested in the project, and we really want community input. And if you could reach out to your friends, the ones, some of them probably watching TV, and you know, we can't build a school in a vacuum. We have to get input from you folks, and that'll really help us a lot. We'll build the school that you want, and just try to reach out to your friends, and that'd be great. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Is that okay?
That's great.
This is my car.
Is your car?
This is the car I had in high school.